One of the most common questions I get about polyamory and open relationships is, how does that even work? And that's a pretty good question, because polyamory and non-monogamy are still not accepted in the mainstream as legitimate relationships. Why is that? It's because they're not sanctioned by the state. Marriage has been governed by Marriage has been a legal contract for some time. What does that mean? It means that when you get married legally, there are certain tax breaks, there are certain aspects of your will, who gets to make decisions about your medical care, if you're in a coma. All of that is legally laid out when you get married according to the state. But what happens if you have relationships outside of the state's control? What if you have relationships like domestic partnerships, where you are maybe living together, you share finances, you raise children together maybe, but you're not legally married? Is that really marriage? It depends on your definition of marriage. To me, yeah. If you've decided that you and another person, or more than one other person, are legally If you've decided that yourself and one or more other people are married, then I respect that. That means you are in a committed relationship, and committed doesn't necessarily mean monogamous. It just means that you've committed to be together, you and this other person, or more than one other person. You've committed to each other to be in whatever you define as your relationship for the foreseeable future. This brings me to pagan marriages. Paganism is a broad term for polytheistic, earth-based religions, usually. So this means that pagans tend to acknowledge more than one deity, more than one god or goddess. Maybe it's two. In Celtic and traditional Wicca paganism, there are a lot of acknowledgments of a god and a goddess. And from the god and goddess came everything else. But that's just one type of belief. But in paganism, there are several types of commitment ceremonies, and I'm going to talk a little bit about hand fastings. So hand fasting is a type of pagan commitment ceremony. It's not necessarily legally recognized, but all that changes whether it's legally recognized or not is whether or not you have an officiant there who is from the government and has you sign a piece of paper. That's all that legal marriage is. But the emotional and perhaps romantic side of a marriage, or any committed relationship, and again, committed does not mean monogamous necessarily, but the difference is just how you define it. So in hand fastings, there are at least 3 different kinds. One hand fasting is a year and a day. What does that mean? It means that you've decided to have a relationship with this other person for, usually the traditional term is a year and a day. Why that particular span of time? I'm not sure. I need to do a little bit more research about pagan marriage ceremonies in that way. But a year and a day is sometimes seen as a trial period. Do we really want to be together forever until we die? Or it can be seen as an engagement period, or whatever else you want it to be. That's the beauty of creating your own committed relationships and your own relationships of any sort, is you get to define them however you want. Whatever is comfortable and consented upon between you and your other partners is great. Another kind of pagan hand fasting is for as long as love shall last. Now that's what my spouse and I chose when we got married about 5 years ago. We chose as long as love shall last, and a lot of people had questions about that. A lot of people saw that as like, oh, don't you want to be together until you die? And my answer was, yes, I foresee us being together until we die. Does that mean that I'm ready to make that statement of absolute, definite surety right now, 3 years into my relationship? Maybe not. Maybe I want to say as long as love shall last, because if my spouse and I fall out of love with each other, or if one of us does something horrific that really wrecks the relationship, I'm not binding myself to stay in it.